If you navigate to the upper left-hand corner of your workspace, mouse click on the word Premiere Pro. If you're on a PC, you want to mouse click on the word Edit. So because I'm on a Mac, I'll mouse click on the word Premiere Pro. I'll select Keyboard Shortcuts. There it is. And once the Keyboard Shortcuts window open, it is the same. It's the same on a PC as it is on a Mac. So that part is very straightforward. Well, here are all the shortcuts. As a matter of fact, if you click on this down arrow button here at the very top, if you're on a PC, you'll see Adobe Premiere Pro default. But one thing I want to point out, and that is, look at this, Final Cut Pro 7 shortcuts. Let me talk about that for a moment. For those of you that are coming from Final Cut Pro 7, this is going to be music to your ears. If you select that and then choose the OK button at the bottom right-hand side, Premiere Pro shortcuts will now be the same shortcuts that were in Final Cut Pro 7. Wow, that is really going to help you guys out, or girls, that are coming from 7, because now you can just jump right into Premiere Pro and start editing, and all your shortcuts that you memorized are going to be activated. About 95+% of those shortcuts will now be applicable in Adobe Premiere Pro CC 2014. So that is a very handy feature right out of the gate. I do want to recommend, though, if you decide you want to use this, that you wean yourself off of those shortcuts and begin to memorize the native shortcuts. Or the default shortcuts, the Adobe Premiere Pro default shortcuts. Because at some point, you'll get other editors that know what the Premiere default shortcuts are, and you won't. And you do need to begin to learn how to use those and memorize those. So I'm going to go back and select Adobe Premiere Pro default shortcuts, and I'll continue with this lesson. All right, so down below, there's a couple things here. There's a list of categories here on the left, and then the shortcut will appear over here on the right. So for instance, if I go to this first category, Premiere Pro, and I click on the triangle so that it points down, I'll reveal the item with the shortcut over here on the right-hand side. So for instance, if I navigate over here to Sequence, and I look here are all the different items with the keyboard shortcut. So for instance, F is match frame. That's the shortcut for match frame, which I use quite often. There's a bunch of others here. T for trim edit. I mean, it goes on and on and on. There's easily 100, if not more, shortcuts. And I don't know or even think that you should memorize all of them. However, if you memorize 20, maybe 25, 30, wow, you will become lethal. So memorizing them is one thing, but let me show you how to customize a keyboard shortcut. So I just noticed that Sequence Settings doesn't have a shortcut here. So I'm going to click on it just to highlight straight across, and then I'll click gently over here in this area. Notice how I get a little black box. The great thing about doing this is if you accidentally type in a keyboard shortcut that's already being used, Premiere will give you a little warning and say, no, don't use that, choose something else. So, okay, so what should we pick as a sequence setting, a shortcut to open sequence settings? How about Control S? Let's give that a try. Control S. Okay, great. It took it. There's no warning. Great. If I select OK, and I go back into my workspace and I push Control S, wow, there we go. That is extremely handy. That is great. So I'll select OK. That opened up my sequence settings. So if you go back over to the keyboard shortcuts real quick, I want to show you that you can also, let me go back to that spot, you can change it or get rid of it. So I'll go back to that shortcut, I'll click on this little X, and that should get rid of it. There we go. And or I can go back in and change it again. Now sometimes it's hard to get back in there. I'm clicking here, let me click on that and then click, there we go, click on that. I can change it, I can delete it, do whatever I want with it. The great thing though is you can see there's a lot of blank spaces here, and these are not intentional, but you can go in and add your own custom keyboard shortcuts. You can even change some of these. That is a great thing. Like I mentioned earlier, once you know a handful of these, you really get a lot faster and more efficient at editing. So that's a great lesson. Hope you learned a few things. You're now ready for the next lesson.